All right, how's it going, everyone? Yeah, we got a special guest today, a Pitt legend, one of the most famous Pitt walk-ons of all time. He had a moment that we're all still celebrating, and Pitt fans remember forever. Yep, that's right. On the show today with Aidan Fisch. How's it going, Fish?
Good, man. Appreciate you having me on.
Man, it's a pleasure for you being on. So yeah, what have you been up to since graduation? A lot of Pitt fans are probably wondering that. I just can't believe it's been 2 years since the March Madness team.
Yeah, man. I'm in medical school now, so I'm a first year at Duquesne's new school. So just been doing that. Still play a little bit of pickup basketball here and there, and make it down to as many pick games as I can. But keeping busy for sure.
I guess Pitt Medical's pretty hard to get into, I'm guessing.
Yeah, they're like probably like top 10 in the country.
They should have made an exception. That's complete crap. So every time I go downtown to a place called Tequila Cowboy, I always see you there. So would you call yourself the mayor of Tequila Cowboy?
Uh, I've definitely spent some time there. Tried to cut back after college, but if there's a Pitt football game, I'll be down there for sure.
Yep, yeah, that's how it is. You definitely grow out of it. I'm growing out of it as well, but it's still so much fun.
Yeah,
Let's go. Let's talk more about a serious topic. So, do you still keep in touch with, the coaching staff and the guys you played with a couple years ago? And how about the new players as well?
yeah. So I definitely text Coach O'Toole, Jason Capel, Coach Capel a decent bit. I mean, just, maybe once a month, every so often, check up with them. And as far as guys currently on the team, I mean, I knew the guys last year. I don't know any of the new, like, incoming guys, the transfers, obviously. I'll try and go to a practice this summer to try and figure meet the guys and just see how they're doing. But as far as former players, still keep in touch with like Justin Champagny a little bit, obviously Blake a little bit. Talk to Nelly every once in a while. I talk to like John Hughley a little. I know he's
He's
still
back.
bouncing around, but I mean, I had probably, I don't know exactly how many, probably like 30 different teammates over 3 years. So I've got a lot of former teammates. So I try and keep in touch with some of them for sure.
That's good. That's definitely the culture Coach Capel's trying to build. So that's really cool to hear that you're keeping up because, you know, that team a couple years ago, really special guys. So that's cool that you guys are still keeping in touch. And so, yeah, let's talk more about the 3 years you were on the team. How weird was it the last 2 years, to start watching from the stands and from home, even because you're on the bench for 3 years?
Yeah. Are you talking about the last 2 years since I
Yeah,
left?
like how weird has it been to
Yeah,
be
I mean,
not be on the team?
listen, when I was on the team, I was still watching, but at least I was a courtside seat. No, it's a little weird. I still find myself getting a little too emotional in the stands when stuff isn't going well or when it's going really well. But, a little less stressful now for sure. Now that
Yeah.
I'm not on the team.
Yeah, same for me, man. I'm so used to being in the zoo. Now I gotta do what you've been doing.
Yeah, right?
Um, so I've always wondered this. So I've never heard of a manager becoming a player. So talk about that a little bit. Like, how did you start as a manager, and Caples, gave you a spot on the team?
Yeah. So I had reached out to the coaching staff earlier, like in the summer before I became a manager, just asking about if they were having walk-on tryouts. I was spamming the coaches' emails and stuff. I eventually got a reply saying they weren't having any tryouts, so I was a little pissed off at that point. But they did say they were taking managers, so I went in. Our director of basketball operations, Brian Regan, he kind of handles the managers and all that stuff. But he made it pretty clear that if you want to be a manager, you're a manager first and foremost. Just because managers don't typically become players, that it just doesn't happen very often. I know a guy for Florida did it this year. Uh, I forget Bennett something.
Oh, yeah, the guy who's talking to that female
Yeah,
reporter.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
The one who was going viral for talking to
yeah.
the reporter. But the first practice I was a manager, Coach O'Toole, he saw I was a taller guy and threw me into the drills immediately. And at the time I was probably like 35 pounds lighter, and I was going up against guys who were 6'10", 250, 240, whatever. So I was getting my ass whooped a little bit, but I was sticking in there. And then throughout the season, I kind of just kept getting more involved in practice. And Coach O'Toole knew that I wanted to walk. All the coaches knew that I wanted to walk on, and just trying to bring energy every single day, be the hardest worker I can, kind of show those traits that coaches value in walk-ons. And eventually COVID hit that year, and I kept texting Coach O'Toole like, hey, like, if you guys are having tryouts next year, like, let me know, blah blah blah. And I got like a call late April, or no, it was late May, from Coach O'Toole, like on a Friday or Saturday night. He was like, dude, you made the team. Yeah, so that's how that went. Kind of out of the blue, but
That's crazy. So yeah, let's talk more about that. Your first season, man, that season just looked so like weird. Like, how tough was it for you to be like your first season to be during that like strange COVID season?
yeah, I mean, it was weird because obviously so excited to be on the team, and my family's all Pitt fans and stuff. So, they were excited to come to the games, but there was no crowds at these games. So, like, it was like my parents and like four other guys' parents who would be there, and maybe a few people they let in who were big donors, but it was weird. We got tested for COVID like every week, I think, and guys were constantly like, we had a few games, I think Louisville, like they made JB play with a mask,
Oh my God, I
but like
remember that.
he wasn't even wearing the mask. Like the mask was around his chin.
I'm
So it was definitely a weird time. And I think, the season was, I don't exactly remember how many games, but it was sizably shorter. We started later, and I know we got off to a hot start, and then, everything derailed somewhere in the middle of the
yeah.
season. But yeah, bizarre season for sure.
Yeah, I think you guys lost to St. Francis first game of the season. My dad
Right.
and I had tickets for that game, but then Governor Wolf like said like you had can't have any live like
Right, right, right.
fans. So it got revoked and I was so upset. That was my only chance to be able to go to a game that year. And then like everything did go well. And then I think the game that kind of derailed everything was that Wake Forest game on the road.
Yes, because we had just beaten Duke at home,
Yep.
and then we played at Wake, and I believe Wake was like either last place or second to last in the
Yeah.
ACC. They beat us, so yeah, that was definitely the rock that got everything going.
Yeah, I think that Wake Forest game is like a nightmare for a lot of Pitt fans because that one guy, Ish Massoud, made like 10 threes, and
Yes,
everyone still
yeah,
talks about it.
yeah.
So, I mean, your first 2 years were really tough. I mean, how tough was it to be on those two losing teams in 21 and 22?
I mean, listen, I my lifelong dream was to be a Pitt basketball player, so we could
Yeah.
have we could have been 0 and 40, and I would have been having the best time of my life, right? That being said, it's definitely you know, every year you start the season with these high hopes, and when everything goes wrong, it's tough to be in those locker rooms at points in time because everyone wants to win so badly, and stuff's not going the right way. So I'm very thankful that we were able to turn it around my last year. That made everything worth it for sure.
So, yeah, let's talk about that season. So, going to 23, I mean, did you know this team was different? Because I remember Coach Pursuti, we had a meeting with him. He kept telling us, like, this team is different, believe us. Did you have that feeling as well that, this team was different and could this team actually achieve something?
Yeah, listen, my first 2 years, we were a young team. We didn't have much experience. Now, we had a few guys maybe who were, a few upperclassmen, but none of them had NCAA tournament experience. Like, and that goes a long way. And then another thing was we had shooters. I remember we were playing in an open gym in the summer, and it was like me, Blake, Greg, maybe Nelly, Cam Johnson, Ryan Luther, like all these guys, like a bunch of pros too. And this might have been Blake's first week on campus, and he was absolutely lighting it up. And I barely knew the kid at that time. Like I thought he was like, if you look at him, I thought he was a big man. Like I was like, there's no way he's shooting like this. He must have made 8, 9 threes in a 20-minute stretch. Um, so once I saw that, and workouts kept going through, you could see that he was a special player. And then Nelly, obviously phenomenal player. They all shot the three well, and I think Nelly had been to an NCAA tournament. Blake had been to one, and then like we had Nike and JB, who
I
neither
think
of them had.
JB might have been the
JB
one.
might have been to one with Wichita. No, no, with Texas Tech.
He was there at Texas Tech because I think they had Mac McClung that year, and they were really
Yeah.
good.
So JB, like, I mean, he's about as good as a college player as I've seen in the ACC in the past few years. And then, Nike being able to bring a guy like him off the bench. I mean, he's phenomenal. He's instant offense, and there were a lot of good pieces there. And then Federico, listen, Feddy got a lot of slack from a lot of fans and stuff, but he did two things very well that I think translate to a team that has all these shooters and all these guys who can create. He guarded the pick and roll well. He also protected the rim, and then he rebounded the ball. Listen, there's not. It sounds simple. Pairing a guy like that with good guards can go a long way. And I know at times, he's not a back to the basket big that everyone wants a DeJuan Blair. Listen, there's not many DeJuan Blairs out there, but he did his job to a pretty good level, and he kind of made that team fit very well. Just because our guards weren't the greatest on defense,
Yeah.
but he was kind of able to mask that a little, especially in the big games.
You're 100% right. In my opinion, I feel like the college basketball teams have the most success are the ones that are guard oriented with a good rim protecting and rebounding big. So Fetty was like the perfect
Yeah,
center for our team that
it's
year.
a formula, and
Yeah.
it works.
I mean, I still have Fetty's in the portal. I was pretty sad he like transferred last
Yeah,
year, and I would love to have him back, but we already have two bigs, but I
right,
miss him a
right.
lot.
Yeah.
And Blake, like I had no idea that guy was like this like 3-point sniper is like what you were saying. Like I'm a huge college basketball fan. I remember watching Ole Miss. Like they just had him as like a complimentary piece those
Right.
years. I
He
was
almost,
just
if you watched his highlights at Ole Miss, he was like a mid-range guy. A
yeah,
lot
I
of,
don't know where it came from.
um, I mean, obviously good shooter, but I think it was part of it was, we gave him this green light. And once you give, you know, he worked his tail off. I'll give him that. He was in the gym constantly. He basically lived there. And you give a shooter like him all that confidence, and it can go a long way for sure. And he could miss 10 in a row. He thought the 11th was going in, so that was definitely
He's one of the best pit players of all time. He was just one of one, and everyone misses him. I think everyone will miss him for years.
yeah,
Yeah, he
for
was
sure.
special. So that season, you guys I think started 1-3 if I remember correctly.
Yeah,
So what was the moment that season that kind of turned everything around?
I think it was the third game we lost was against VCU. And I remember Coach Capel in his post game interview was kind of we had lost, but he was hopeful that we'd turn it around. Michigan, we got our asses whooped, and for lack of a better term, and we fought a lot harder in the second half versus VCU. We thought something clicked, but really at Northwestern when we beat them by 30, and that's an NCAA tournament team. I mean, that was just a rout. We were getting whatever we wanted on offense. I think we moved the ball so well that year, and that game, man, like you kind of saw everyone at their best, just spraying threes from everywhere. But definitely the Northwestern one was the big, like, that was a good Northwestern team, and we whooped them.
That's my answer as well. I remember I was sick as a dog that night, and that game just cured my sickness. I was like the
Right. There
happiest
you go.
MFer on campus. Like, oh my god, that was incredible. And you're right, like Northwestern, like Boo Booey, that team was really good, and
They were
you
good.
guys had won by 30. That game
Yeah.
was awesome. That's my answer as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, you guys. I mean, we're both Pitt fans our whole lives, and you know we like when Stallings took the job in the first couple years of Capel, like we no tournament team in 7 years. You guys were the first team to finally break it and make the tournament. What was about like you guys that separated yourselves from the Pitt teams that just could never get it done?
I think it really goes back to the fact that we had an old roster that could shoot. You get guys, you get good guards and guys who can shoot it from three, and it really covers up a lot of weaknesses in your team. When you're not shooting the three well, you have to defend at a really high level, you have to finish at a really high level, but really being able to shoot the three like we did that year. I mean, Greg was a phenomenal addition in the portal. I don't think he was the most sought after guy coming out of Marquette just because his role had kind of diminished. But he really fit in so well, next to JB because Greg wasn't a guy. He's a guy who's just going to sit in the corner and make threes, maybe give you a one dribble pull up. And he fits so well with JB and Nelly. Also, that was a team that really liked each other. They liked playing with each other, which is I think in the portal era especially, you saw Kansas loaded with talent, but these guys couldn't play together. So definitely having some chemistry and being able to play with each other is an underrated aspect right now of the portal. That's why, you look at Florida. Florida, obviously Walter Clayton is a transfer, but he's there for 2 years. They're filled with guys who have been there for multiple years. That's huge. That really helped. Duke, obviously. Duke was another. Duke and Houston, like those guys are all, almost their entire roster has been there for multiple years. So shooting, being old, and having chemistry, that really helped us for sure.
Yeah, and I think it did help, having you come back, JB come back, Nike come back. So have some guys on the team with some familiarity helps as well. And you guys were just winners. You did everything, any power to win a game.
Yeah, for sure.
So you already kind of mentioned this, but yeah, as a kid from Franklin Regional, was it like always your dream to play for Pitt and make a basket like you did?
Yeah, since the day I probably picked up a basketball. My dad's probably he's not even a alum or anything. He just became a Pitt fan out of nowhere. He had some friends when he moved to Pittsburgh. So he's had Pitt football and basketball season tickets for maybe, let's say 30 years, maybe 35. I'd been to over 100 Pitt basketball. I had been to over 100 Pitt basketball games before I even was on the team. So definitely, I think probably by the time I was 7 or 8, I knew that that was my dream. I was upset, and I was born in 2000, mid 2000s, like 2007, 8, 9. That's when Pitt basketball was at its peak, and going to those games, man, definitely dreamed of that for sure.
I mean, same thing for me. None of my parents were alum as well, and like just growing up in this area, like I picked Pitt because they're a hometown team, and I've loved them like you have as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's definitely special. So yeah, who's your favorite Pitt basketball player of all time?
All right. I think growing up, at first, I was a huge, obviously, DeJuan Blair fan, but that's kind of a cop-out answer. Like, I loved him, but I only got to see him for 2 years. Big Ashton Gibbs guy. Loved Ashton Gibbs. I think, like, underrated, who doesn't get talked about enough, Lamar Patterson's probably one of my favorite
Yeah,
players ever. He was smooth. Yeah, probably those three. But Ashton Gibbs was probably my favorite.
yeah. Before I met all you guys, mine was definitely Lamar Patterson as well.
Yeah.
He was so versatile. He could shoot the three, he could pass. He was an all around great player. He was
Yeah.
awesome.
He was phenomenal.
So I don't really want to sit here and ask you the same questions about that basket. You've probably gotten the same ones. I'm like I've always wondered. I've always wanted to ask you this, but on that post, like when you're like when Capel are crying in the locker room,
Yeah.
and Kevin Durant like commented under that post, like what was your initial reaction to that?
I think I was already home, and my entire family and all my friends from home were at my apartment, and someone like came up to me and they're like, "Yo, KD commented on your Instagram post," and I was like, "Bro, what? KD who?" And they were like, "Kevin Durant." So I kind of ran to that. What I didn't realize was KD, because Coach Capel was like USA Basketball, like KD like follows Pitt basketball a little bit, and actually follows us even more since Bob was on the team.
Hmm.
because I don't know, he loved Bub's game and definitely followed that. But yeah, that was pretty crazy.
Yeah, I did look at that as well. Katie does follow us. I think a couple of our players have actually played on his AAU team.
Yeah, Will Jeffress played for them. Ish maybe.
I think Ish did.
I
Yeah,
think Ish. A few other guys maybe, but
yeah, that's
yeah, it's
cool.
crazy. And Katie loves being on the internet. There's no
He
star
does.
that
I've tried
loves
to
it more.
DM him to see if he
Yeah,
has answers.
yeah, no, he sometimes does to some people.
So, yeah, a word that Pitt fans don't like to hear is bubble. So, yeah, we've had a lot of run-ins with the bubble the last few years, starting with your year. Did you feel like you guys were kind of playing for your tournament lives during that ACC tournament?
I felt that way. I don't think anyone else felt that way because I follow the bubble probably more than some of the other guys. Going into that tournament, I was like, dude, if we lose to, I think it was Georgia Tech. I was like, if we
Mm-hmm.
lose to Georgia Tech, like we are screwed.
Yeah.
So we pulled that out, and then obviously got killed by Duke right after.
Uh,
But I think most of the guys were like pretty confident going into Selection Sunday, and I was not because I was seeing what Lunardi was saying and all these other guys. I was sitting there. Some of the guys thought we were getting like an 8 seed, which I knew was not happening, even though we probably did deserve. If the ACC wasn't trashed that year, like the ACC was actually good that year. Like Miami was good, like Duke was good. We should have been in like a 5 years ago. We probably would have been like an 8 seed with that resume, like beating Northwestern by 30. But I don't know. And then last year, it was kind of like, obviously, I wasn't on the team, but like another team that probably should have been a tournament team. Now I understand there are so many bid stealers, and it's kind of a flaw. It's a pretty flawed thing because if you look at last year's team, like that's a team you watch them, you're like they're an NCAA tournament team. And then if you looked at this year's team, remember when they were like still having us in the tournament after like loss after loss?
yep.
Like it was a flip-flop. Like the eye test this past year didn't pass, and 2 years ago it did pass, but they don't care about any. They just care about the metrics. We got to get off that bubble for sure.
Yeah. You're right. I feel like that road win against Ohio State like carried us so long because
Yeah, like Ohio State and then the WVU win outweighed everything else. Which,
yeah.
listen, I was happy for in the moment, but it is like it's a flawed system for sure.
Yeah. So how cool was the whole March Madness experience for you and the guys?
Oh, I loved it. Yeah, basically we didn't have class for whatever this 10 days, so that was great. Um, and it's a busy time though. You're not just playing a game. You also all these guys are doing media sessions. Like the reporters are in our locker room every day. You're doing interviews. You have all these public shoot arounds. Like there's a lot to do. So it was definitely a busy time, but it was great. Now I do wish I loved that we played in Dayton, even though like obviously I didn't want to play in a playing game, but like one of the best atmospheres I've ever been a part of.
Um,
I hated that they threw us into Greensboro again though. Greensboro, Greensboro, I compare to Monroeville. Okay? It's Monroeville with a large stadium in the middle. So like I think the best thing they have there is a wing stop right next door.
they got nothing there.
So I was a little pissed off that they threw us there, but obviously Iowa State win was great, and then the Xavier game, it was a good game, tough
Mhm.
loss, but um, yeah, Greensboro though, like it wasn't even a sold out arena, which also like made it not as great. Like the Dayton game, you just can't top.
I was traveling alongside you guys, and yeah, that Dayton game was probably one of the best. Like, it was top five sporting events I've ever been to in my life. It was
Yeah,
incredible. But yeah, Greensboro is terrible. They had like no good hotels either. It was just
right.
like, it was so boring
Yeah, the
there.
place
But
stinks.
yeah, I mean it's like historic, but yeah, yeah. Um, so yeah, let's talk a little bit more about March Madness. Like, as a Pitt fan growing up, like not seeing a tournament for 7 years and seeing some really bad teams, like I was like so satisfied just even making the tournament.
Yeah.
And I obviously wanted to win that Dayton game, and you guys obviously did as well because I just wanted to prove that we deserved to be in the round of 64. But Iowa State was such a good team that year. Like I was like, oh man, I don't even know how we're gonna beat this team. Like, and obviously you guys beat they scored 41 points. It was like
Yeah, that was a beatdown.
I didn't even enjoy it because I was just I was in shock the whole game. I was like, how is this happening? So like obviously I thought we were playing with house money at that point. Like after that, I was like, I mean, did you guys have a lot of belief? Like heck, we could like make a really deep run here.
Well, I was looking at it. We didn't really. It wasn't really that tough. If we could get past Xavier, like I think it was Texas was the next game. Like Texas was a good team, but I kept looking at it. I was like, man, I would love a Pitt Penn State Sweet 16
Yeah.
because they were actually kind of a similar team to us that year. They had Jalen Pickett, who kind of plays him and JB are a little similar.
Hmm.
Beth Lundy, who's kind of there, Blake Hinson. Yeah, I mean, we had a lot of confidence for sure. That Xavier team, man, they were good though. They ran some sets that were tough to guard for us. They made some tough shots, and we kind of had a chance to sneak back in there at the end.
Yeah.
Didn't go the way we wanted, but it was still a good run for sure.
Yeah, Sean Miller's the king of adjustments. It probably was
Yeah,
really
yeah,
tough. And yeah, I
yeah.
remember Blake had a really good game. Like he kind of kept us in it at the end.
Right.
So obviously you were a walk on, and in NCAA with like the transfer portal and all these rulings, they're talking about maybe getting rid of walk ons. It's like what value does a walk on bring to a basketball team, and how has a walk on changed like your walk on experience changed your life?
Yeah, man. Listen, there's very few guys in college at this level who are doing it solely for the team. Okay, like everyone in their mind, everyone wants to play in the NBA. Everyone wants to make money, and the walk-ons are the guys who are there solely for the team. They're there for the love of the game, and they're there to make everyone better. Listen, I tell guys all the time. I get messages all the time about guys who want to become walk-ons. My advice, you should never become a walk-on unless you truly love the team. Because if you're doing it for if you're doing it for the gear or the like you get some fame from it or like the clout, like you're doing it for the wrong reason. You're not gonna have fun. It's too much work for you to do it for alternative motives. I just think walk-ons are the backbone of all college sports. These get like when I was listen, first guy in, last guy out, as cliche as that sounds, but you're the guy who is, you have to be the most energetic, have the most energy, whether you're feeling shitty or not that day, you better be the loudest guy in the gym and bring the energy for everyone else. And I think they're integral to success, and great programs a lot of times have some pretty damn good walk-ons. And I'm not
Yeah.
talking guys who they're like a hell of a player. Like these dudes, like they're there because they give every ounce of energy into the team. As far as how it absolutely changed my life. I can't even imagine like who I would be if I never ended up getting on the team. Definitely changed me for the better. I made so many great relationships with people. Um, coaches I was with, just absolutely great people. And athletics in general, I think, translates a lot to a lot of different things in life as far as working hard and trying to achieve those goals.
Yeah, that's awesome. So, a lot of I've always told people like that season you were kind of the Udonis Haslam for our team. Like you didn't play much, but you were just such a huge voice for our team and a motivator. You always brought the energy. How do you feel about that comparison?
Hey, I'll take it. I'll take it. You're not the first person to say that.
Really? Dang.
I think someone has said that to me before. Because I was an unk. I was one of the older dudes for sure. I think, yeah, I was with the program longer than any dude on the roster. So, guys would definitely come to me for like literally any question to do with the program, like, yo, Fish, what should I do here? Like, what does this mean? But yeah, listen, Miami Heat fans love Haslam, so I like the comparison.
Heck yeah. So let's talk about my job. How much did the Oakland Zoo mean to that team that year?
Dude, it's huge. If you look at probably our two, no, the Miami game is one that stands out. Like,
Hmm.
you guys were phenomenal. And when that crowd gets going, like I think Isaiah Wong turned the ball over
Mm-hmm.
to end the game. Like that's because everything's so hectic. Like if you played that game in COVID with nothing, we probably don't win that game.
Heck no.
I would actually guarantee we don't win that game. Or when we played UNC at home and Nike kind of, I think he got a steal and then took it to the rim, scored on Caleb Love, and like the zoo's going crazy. You know, those types of games, like that's why home court advantage matters. That's why Vegas, favors home court advantage,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because you have the Oakland Zoo or any other great student section
Mm-hmm.
on your side. So that game, obviously a Syracuse game, you guys were phenomenal. Virginia,
Mm-hmm.
that was a great one too. Dude, it's huge.
So I'm guessing Syracuse was probably your favorite game that year, obviously.
Yeah. How'd you guess?
Other than the Cuse game, what game like was your favorite besides the Cuse game?
Dude, honestly, I gotta go home game or like whole season.
I guess home game, like in the Pete.
Home game, I'll probably go UNC just because it was kind of early in the year and I think a lot of people weren't really sold on us. And I just love beating UNC. Like Miami was a more exciting game, I think. Miami game was great, but like that UNC game, I loved that. And JB was just like Leaky Black was guarding him, and Leaky was, I think, like honestly, top three defender in the league that
Yeah.
year. And JB just made him look like a kid. Like he just absolutely dominated him. So
Yeah. I love the Virginia game, because that was the game that really put us on the map. Like we just
yeah,
beat UNC, then being number 11, a Tony Bennett led team. I was like, "Yep, we're here again." So
yeah,
that game
that was
was
a good one.
awesome. Um, so during your years, what was the craziest thing you've seen an Oakland Zoo member do or remember do?
Dude, that's hard. I think there was before I was on the team, I think in the Duke game when Zion was there, I saw a dude like a bigger guy. He took off his shirt while I don't know if it was Zion at the free throw line, but someone, and I was doing some stuff that I probably can't mention on this podcast, but that's probably the most absurd thing I've seen.
Oh my god, that's funny. Um, So yeah, let's. You brought up his name already, but let's talk about him a little more. Last year on Twitter, you were super vocal about Joe Lunardi. Like, I'm.
Yeah.
Do you have some hatred towards that guy?
Listen, I don't know him, but I wouldn't call us friends if we ever met. No, I mean the guy like he doesn't watch the games, and he's not a basketball guy. Like he doesn't have this pedigree to be talking like the way he does about the bracket. But my problem with him is he has such a sway in the rest of the bracketology world that when he puts something out, it just like gets its legs of its own. So like if he puts like where he places these teams, other bracketologists and like athletic directors on the committee are looking at this info and taking it as gospel instead of actually watching the games and seeing like how good these teams actually are. And obviously like Pitt fans were vocal towards him and rightfully so because he would purposely slight us on Twitter and he would only look at the bad stuff that happened to our resume, like not any of the great wins or so I'm not a fan of Joe Lunardi.
I mean, the only good thing I'll say about Lenardi is he did create like the bracketology like
Right.
topic, so that's pretty cool. But I mean, yeah, I've been looking at Lenardi bracketology since like elementary school. But yeah, that's you brought some pretty good points, and yeah, we did 100% get snubbed 2 years ago, and he did not help our case at all because he's so all over Twitter
Not
and
at all.
social media. So yeah, last year was obvious. Oh, 2020. I keep getting mixed up. So 23-24. It was your first year off the team. Like, how cool was it, to watch your former teammates like Blake, Fetty, and the Twins, and also get to see Bub, who was a lottery pick, Jalen, and
Yeah, dude.
Ish.
That team was fun to watch. I think Blake was the grandpa on that team and obviously best player on the team and he took a step. like as good as he was with us, he was phenomenal last year. I mean, his 41 versus Louisville, that was quite a fun game to be at. And then, seeing Bub, I played against Bub when he was a recruit at Pitt, and he was a good player, but I'm not sure I like truly realized how good he was going to be. When I played against him, he was probably like 6'3.5", and he grew a decent bit. But I remember one of my buddies told me about he faced off against Ian Jackson when Ian Jackson was a junior. Bub was a senior, and this is when Bub like he was like a borderline top 100 guy, and Bub just dominated him. And my buddy's like, dude, we might have something here. And when he got on campus, that's all I was hearing from guys on the staff and other players. They were like, dude, this Bub kid is legit, and it's pretty cool to see what he's doing in the NBA. I think that's a great thing for Pitt.
Oh yeah, it's awesome, and yeah, I remember like when they went on that foreign tour, I was kind of expecting Dior to be our starting point guard, and when they said that Bub was starting over him, I was like, wait a minute, that's crazy. And then in his first game, he dropped a triple double.
Yeah.
But you're right. If you paid attention to his like high school, like he like was dropping like 30 points a game in Baltimore. Like that's something to definitely pay attention
Yeah,
to.
in a very good league. Like the league he was in was phenomenal.
So yeah, what was your thoughts on this season? Obviously, definitely did not go as planned.
Yeah, definitely disappointing. I was really hopeful. Listen, a lot of people throw out like comparisons from team to team. This team had some good pieces, I think. I think the early close losses really did us in. I think if we win, two of those four really close, like if we close out that Louisville and Clemson game at home, I think we're looking at a different season just because the season is so quick and these games are so close together that you can get a snowball effect pretty quickly. And it's pretty defeating when you keep losing the same way. And to be frank, we really we had a lot of guys who were good scorers off the dribble. Like Ish and Jalen were phenomenal players, but we needed also guys around them to shoot the ball. Like Zach really shot the ball well from three, but outside of that, we didn't have a terrible amount of shooting. And then just defensively was tough. We didn't. You can either, if you want to be a good team, you got to be good on one side of the ball. We really struggled. We couldn't shoot the ball, and defensively it wasn't working. So that's disappointing. But the beauty of the transfer portal is you get a fresh start every year. So we'll see.
Yeah,
hoping for the best this year for sure.
So yeah, so do you have belief that Coach Capel and the coaching staff will turn this around next season?
Yeah, I really like the portal ads so far. I think we're a shooter away, one or two shooters away from having a nice looking roster. I don't know the names of the guys that well, but the South Alabama kid, his film really pops.
Mm-hmm.
He looks like a NBA caliber guy. The jumper, like the percentage isn't that great, but if you look at his jump, like it's a jumper you can work with. I think he gets some reps in, and that's a guy who could really improve. And then the Oregon State dude, solid, steady point guard. We like Jalen was phenomenal, but Jalen's more of a scoring guy.
Mm-hmm.
This kid kind of gives me a little like James Robinson feel.
Yep.
So we'll see how that works. Really excited to see the Iowa State kid, the European kid, if he can really stroke the ball. And then, I think Biba's going to take a big jump. He's a guy who, he definitely needs a leash because he is an explosive scorer. So, you got to let him go through. He might miss two to start the game, but once he makes that first one, watch out. So I'm excited, but definitely more hope in Pitt basketball and Pitt football just in the current climate of NIL. So we'll see.
Yeah, it's definitely scary with the money being poured out, and hopefully we could
Yeah.
keep competing. But I'm confident too. And we also got Deshaun Jackson, who's that
Yes.
man we've been looking for. So yeah, you were talking about how you're a med major, you want to be a doctor. I always wondered this, like, how did you manage being on an ACC basketball team and being in such a tough major? How did you like manage that?
Oh, dude, it sucked. It was horrible. I don't know. I mean, here's the thing. Professors who have students or athletes are majority communications, and then business, and maybe you'll get some other stuff, but very rarely are there any, pre-med or engineering. So these professors, like, they don't give you any leeway. Like some of these other professors, they might give you some leeway. These professors give you nothing. So, definitely had to be really careful with how I scheduled my classes just because we'd practice 12 to 4 every day. And then games, like Pitt loves night classes, but you can't do night classes because of games. So, what wasn't easy, but I got through it alive.
Yeah, that's crazy. And yeah, talking about professors, I think I've told you this before. I think you told me your other friends told you this. So I was in a business class at Pitt, and like he's probably one of the most well-known business professors at Pitt. And before every class, he always poses a question. We write our answer that counts as attendance, and I won't say his name, but the professor said the question was, "Would you trust Aidan Fisch to do surgery on you?" And of course, I said yes. I would trust Fish with anything. So yeah, what's your thoughts on this? And are you looking to prove that you're more than a walk on at Pitt?
I mean, I guess, yeah, yeah. I'm on the next stage of my life, but that's funny that that professor said that. You got to tell me off air who it was.
Yeah, I got you.
That's funny. I think I do know who it probably was because I think this guy had used me in one of his questions like earlier in the year as well that I had heard of. Was it a business class?
Yeah,
Yeah,
he's a business professor. He's
yeah, okay.
awesome. He was
I
just
think I
joking
think I
around.
know who it is. Yeah, that's funny.
So yeah, so last question. So yeah, what does the future hold for you? I think Pitt fans have probably been wondering about you. So yeah, you're going to med school. So yeah, what goals are you trying to achieve?
Yeah, I got 4 years of medical school and then 3 to 5 years of residency. Hopefully, I'll be once I'm done with that. Working as a doctor and going to Pitt games.
Heck yeah.
Yeah, hopefully a season ticket holder at some point.
You
So
gotta get courtside seats to go.
yeah, yeah, I need those court sides for sure. Yeah,
Well,
but
thank you so much for coming on, Fish. It was great catching up with you, and I think a lot of Pitt fans will appreciate hearing from you. And yeah, hope like rooting for you, of course, and for your journey as well. So thank you so much for coming on.
appreciate you, Dewey, my guy.
Yes,
Have a
sir.
good one.